Right, we are back with another episode, and as you can see, we have a guest, someone new. Um, we fired Dirk. We thought we'd get a someone a little bit younger because Dirk is getting a bit too old now, and um, and so we employed Martin. I'm just joking, guys. Dirk unfortunately cannot make it today, but we did get the super sub in as we just thought it would be decent to just get on a guest for a change. So, Martin, welcome to Break at the Apex. This is us, and the two people watching will really appreciate your input today. How are you doing?
Awesome, guys. Thanks for having me. It's lovely to finally chat. We've been wanting to do this for a long time, and it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it has been a long time coming. Almost like a Lando win. Hey, what a way to get started. Sure. What a segue. Anyways, but before we do get into the Lando win, BT, how's it going, my man?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Welcome, Martin. It is pretty cold in Cape Town, so gloomy weather, gloomy mood, I think. But I guess I'll get better as the show goes. But yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to get better as the show goes on because the two people watching are really looking for some energy here. Honestly, it is pretty cold here in Cape Town, but quite frankly, I'm ready for it because I'm very over the summer. Anyhow, gents, we're not gonna do anything particularly special today. I didn't have anything planned. We simply asked Martin to join us just to sign in for Dirk, and we just thought it would be great to just hear his point of view on certain things. So we're just going to get straight into it and just do an as per usual show. And the special part is just to get Martin's opinion. Now, just to give you a bit of a background, Martin is a F1 TikToker as well. He has over 10,000 followers. He's extremely knowledgeable in the sport. I'm sure you can see he's been around for a while. Um,
The beard and the
he has been around for a while, but I'll let you. In fact, you know what, Martin? Maybe I'll just give you like a minute or so to just introduce yourself and explain who you are, where you come from, who you support, what you like, blah blah blah, whatever. You can tell them about all your 20 kids that you have running around at home. It's whatever, you know.
yeah, guys. Awesome. No, yeah,
He has no kids, by the way.
exactly. I'm a 50-year-old single guy, and Port Elizabeth, and yeah, I love Formula One TikTok. It's an extremely great place to chat and meet people. And a big Ferrari fan. I'm not a fan of any particular driver. I support whoever drives the red car. So whoever steps in the red car, that's who I support. We don't care who drives it. Drivers will come and go. Ferrari will stay. So yeah, as more normal Ferrari fans are, we're not biased. So we're not part of the fight between the other clans.
I don't know about the not biased part because BT can be pretty biased at times, but you'll notice that today at some point. But in any case, BT is also a Ferrari fan, as most of you know, Martin. But he is also a Charles Leclerc boy. He's invested in the Charles era of Ferrari. But I think I mean, at the most, BT, you Ferrari first, right? Before any driver.
Yeah, so Martin is right. It is the red car before the driver. So even
Yeah.
the creator of the company himself, Enzo, it's always been the car. You are privileged to actually drive the
Mm.
car itself. So I'm with him with that. Yes, I am a Leclerc guy, but it's basically pointed out in terms of potential. I do
Yeah.
think he can become a world champion one day. And I think Ferrari has made the right move to get Lewis Hamilton, just for him to shadow Lewis Hamilton throughout the years and maybe steal some techniques and a couple of stuff that worked for Lewis Hamilton, of course, to make him a world champion one day because we know that he's going to drive for Ferrari for the longest time, longer than Lewis Hamilton. So that's why I'm in a clear boy because he literally won. He literally won his first race in Monza backing down Lewis Hamilton. If that's not potential for you and that's not amazing, I don't know what you're watching. So yeah, cool.
Yeah.
wa- wasn't his first win in Spa?
First win,
But okay,
second win.
either way.
First win,
Yeah, either
second
way,
win.
yeah, either way, it was definitely in the beginning, and it was a spectacle to watch as well.
Yeah.
And look, guys, I think BT said it quite well, and to say this, I don't think he'd be a Leclerc fan if Leclerc didn't step into the red car. So, Ferrari fans are Ferrari fans, and that's just how it is. Red Bull fans can still be Ricciardo fans and Max fans, and Mercedes fans can still be Lewis fans and Rosberg fans, but when it comes to the actual car, Ferrari fans are Ferrari fans. That's just how it works. I mean, I'm not even a Red Bull fan. I'm a Red Bull and a McLaren fan. I'm just greedy. I just want to support everybody, really. But speaking about first wins, though, we're going to get straight into today's show. And I've got a couple questions laid out. And it's a slightly different layout. We're not going to go through every team. I've just got a couple of questions. We're going to answer those questions. And then we'll call it a night for this episode. But to start off with, we're going to do our one sentence race captions. And Martin, I'm not sure if you were able to get one, but I did ask, and seeing as you're the guest, would you like to give us your one sentence race caption?
Basically, very simple. It has to involve Lando. So Lando wins in slippery Miami.
Yep, pretty simple and pretty sweet. Sweet, short and sweet is what they call it. BT,
Yeah.
would you like to give us yours?
Yeah, sure. So mine is Miami Grand Prix is not so boring. Dirk, that's mine.
What? Say that again.
The Miami Grand Prix is not so much boring. Dirk. Oh, now you get
Right.
it.
So if you missed the last episode, Dirk was explaining how boring Miami was, and BT and I were a bit perplexed because both of us seemed to have enjoyed Miami last year. It wasn't like the most amazing race, but we definitely enjoyed it. And this year, it just seemed to have stepped up a notch. Now, my one sentence race review is, again, very short and sweet. He finally did it. And that just it's a long time coming, and quite frankly, I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. Can call me a softie if you wish, but I did shed a tear. It was one of the greatest moments. I mean, to be honest, that moment was to me bigger than watching Max win his first race and watching Ricciardo win his first race. For some reason, that one just had so much heartfelt feelings. Every single driver and person in the paddock that came over to him went out of their way just to get to him and say, well done. I'm talking about like Lewis, that in the car, respect to him. What he did for Lando was amazing. Daniel Ricciardo, Max that came up to him. It's just, it's such Fernando, who also came out of nowhere just to come and congratulate him. It was one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. It's almost like he's not just a fan favorite, but he's like the paddock favorite. Like he's like the little brother to everybody there. Um, but anyway, so let's get into it, and we'll start off at the top. We'll start off with Lando Norris's win, right? And obviously, it was a great win, and we all loved it. But we do have some serious questions to ask about it. Now, obviously, we know about the safety car. He had fresh tires. So, pretty simple question to ask you guys, and that is simply, do you think Norris would have won without the safety car? We could probably say BT, you can probably go first on this one, and we'll take turns like that.
That's a tough question because obviously McLaren was looking good in terms of pace in the race. So it's really tough to actually answer that if they were going to win that race. You know what? I would say no, because the Ferrari's pace as well was quite good in the race. I think Norris overtaking Sainz then Leclerc would be quite difficult than him overtaking Perez, because we could see that the Red Bulls were kind of struggling. And at the end of the race, of course, they did actually say that the Red Bulls were struggling in terms of the balance of the car. Never mind what Max done by knocking over the pole or anything like that. So I say no. He was not going to win the race, because I think the challenge of actually overtaking Sainz, especially Leclerc, yes, you probably overtake Leclerc because we know Leclerc is not a defensive guy. He's not that good in defense, but we know Sainz is. So I think him being behind Sainz after he has actually overtook Perez was going to waste his time, and he was going to maybe be forced to do another strategy or go into pits earlier than what he done during the race. So I think the safety car was the perfect situation for them. And McLaren, the strategy itself, from them having one strategy to changing their strategy to that strategy quickly, adapting quickly to that strategy was quite good. So I think the safety car was the changing factor of the race, to be honest with you.
100%, 100%. Martin, do you want to add to that?
I agree, and I've got a question to add.
Yeah.
Basically,
Okay, sure.
I agree 100%. I don't think they would have won without the safety car. However, I want to add and say, do you think Lando had a chance of winning the race if him and Oscar Piastri's strategies were swapped around? I still felt that to the last lap, right at the end, on old tyres, on the same fuel load, Piastri was still the fastest driver out there, and he clocked the fastest time. Whenever Zach Brown was asked during the race, what do you feel about your driver's position? He said, let's look after the tyre strategy plays out. So they've always had Lando staying out late, and they've always had that strategy favouring him for the win, and Oscar probably for staying where he was. But had they swapped that strategy around, brought in Lando early and Oscar late, would Oscar not have won easier?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that to an extent. I think a lot of people will read into something like that. I don't really think. I think that happens in every team. I think every team has got the one guy that they will always look after. They'll always protect him first because he's the lead driver. He's the senior. He's the next in line to be the senior guy. I don't think it's a major issue that they did that, but to be fair to the drivers, yes, I agree. I think that could have been an Oscar Piastri win had they have switched the strategies around in terms of the drivers. I think Oscar had a brilliant race, and I think he got very unlucky, and we'll talk about what happened to him. But I think he had an amazing race. Yes, go for it.
Can I ask one more thing on the same topic? I'm not knocking Lando's win. Lando drove fantastically well. He actually pulled away from Max. What I was really getting at is not really the Lando versus Oscar scenario. My real question, which I'm getting to deeper than that, is, do you believe McLaren's upgrades are working?
That's exactly what I thought at my end as well, to be honest with you. So it's exactly the question I asked myself as well. Like I asked myself.
Well.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go. No, I just wanted to say, well, it's a great question because that's literally the very next point that I've got here is that, you know, they got new upgrades, and for most of the race, they seem to be pulling out laps that were quicker. I mean, Lando on the older tires was actually faster than Max when Max did his first pit. So the next question that I have is, do you think McLaren will be able to compete for more wins after this upgrade? Because they've clearly shown an improvement. There's definitely, I mean, they seemed pretty on par with Ferrari, if not even faster.
But did they improve? Because considering Lando ran the upgraded car and Oscar ran the 50% upgraded car, was Lando's car that much better?
Did they not both have the upgrades? So it was only Lando that had upgrades?
Yeah, only Lando.
And half the upgrades.
Interesting. Now, I didn't actually know that. I won't even lie to you. I didn't even know that. But you've got a good point there. The only thing I can say to that is that if that's the case, then we've got to ask the question, would Piastri have been able to drop Max the way Norris dropped Max? I mean, in clean air, Norris was flying. Max said he didn't. I mean, I don't know if Horner was playing mind games, but Horner was saying there's crazy damage, and Max in the press conference was like, I didn't feel any different. So, at the end of the day, if Max says there wasn't a problem with his car, um, then you've got to ask the question: would Piastri have been able to break away from Max the way Norris did? I think there's a lot of open-ended questions here that we could dive into. BT, I didn't want to cut you off earlier. I do apologize. Do you want to give your thoughts on that matter?
No, my thing is that I know race pace and qualifying is different, right? And I don't know if McLaren actually upgraded or optimized that car to be faster in the race than qualifying. That's something I have no idea about, because Ferrari still out-qualified McLaren. However, in race pace, they were similar or give McLaren the edge. So my question is, that's where Martin comes in, where Martin's actually has a good question. Did the upgrades actually work? Because McLaren didn't out-qualify Ferrari, but at the same time, they were in par with Ferrari in terms of pace. Yes, maybe they were slightly above Ferrari, but Ferrari was still able to out-qualify them and still finish third in the race. And Leclerc was kind of catching Verstappen, and we do know why. Maybe because Verstappen had some issues with the car. We don't know that. So that's a good question. That's really a good question, though. Like, how did they know the upgrades actually worked on Lando's side?
The upgrade was the floor, right?
Sorry?
Lots of upgrades. They brought many upgrades. They brought a major upgrade.
But their major upgrade was the floor, was it not?
Part of it, yes.
The reason I'm asking that is because in a lot of cases, especially in cases where aerodynamically a team is pretty strong, and Martin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we take a look at teams like Mercedes, for example, in the era where they dominated. They dominated because they were in the front and they, in clean air, were just dominant. But as soon as they were 10th or 11th, they couldn't get through the field. And I'm just wondering if that's the difference here, is that maybe they aren't fast enough to out-qualify a team like Ferrari, but maybe they can handle the traffic and the dirty air better than a team like Ferrari. That's why they were able to actually look faster than Ferrari, but they're not actually faster than Ferrari. I don't know if that makes sense. But also in clean air, Lando. Say again?
Oh, sorry, you broke up, so I started speaking. Sorry about that. No, basically, that is why I'm still mentioning the upgrade situation, because remember, at the end, the fastest lap still went to Piastri. So not Lando with his clean air in front of him, busy with Max Verstappen chasing him. He was motivated to go as fast as he could. He was clear air in the front, Max behind him, and the fastest lap went to Oscar Piastri at the back of the field.
I will say to that, though, that Lando did say he did have more. He wanted to go for the fastest lap, but then he decided not to because he could feel Stella behind his neck saying, "Lando, don't be stupid." so I get what you're saying, but I feel like Lando probably did have more to get it. And I'm not disregarding anything that you guys are saying. I'm not even agreeing or disagreeing. You guys could be right. I could be right. I mean, I don't even think I've really given a complete opinion on this. I'm playing the devil's advocate here and saying you've got a great question to ask. This is why I think it's a possibility that they did work. To me, it looked like they work. If you just look at the bigger picture, McLaren in general just looked far better this weekend. However, we know Red Bull. Okay, this track suited them last year, but they've had a complete new concept of a car this year. And we've got to say it could also be track specific where, next week we come and McLaren are just nowhere. It could be. We don't know yet. I think we'll probably need to give it another race or two. But, Zach said at the beginning of the year that he thinks they'll be able to catch up. And I know Zach says a lot of things, but let's be honest, McLaren have made some big moves over the last year. If there's any team that is able to probably make it work right now, it's them because they've proven it. So I don't know. It's a tough one. I I have a follow-up question to all of this. But you know what? I'm actually going to leave that question to last because I think that's going to be a nice little clip to put out as well. But yeah, have we concluded this conversation on McLaren? Is there something else you guys want to talk about when it comes to McLaren?
No.
No. Cool. So then let's move over to Red Bull's little chat here. And first of all, guys, I just want to say, for you Max haters out there, I just don't know how you do it. I don't know how you can hate a guy that literally just makes you cry in every press conference. This guy just says the most random things. I don't know if you guys watched it. I sent you guys both the little clip, the little picture, but I don't know if you watched it. It was funnier watching it than seeing the little picture. But they asked him if he thinks Lando would have won without the safety car, and he was just like, people keep asking if, and he was like, if my mother had balls, she would be my father. And I just started crying out of laugh, just like this guy. And you know what I found funny about Max? It's almost like the guy was happy to lose. Like, he was happier for Lando than he was when he first made his own win. Like, it was just unreal. And I think it just goes to show you that Max has definitely got a good side to him. He's not a sore loser. I guess it depends on the situation. I mean, if Lando and him were fighting for championship, maybe it would be different. But at the end of the day, he took it well. And I mean, him and Lando, there's no better duo in a press conference than them two, because those two just make you laugh all day. But anyways, let's get into the chat of Red Bull. Guys, I've got to ask this question. Have Red Bull given away their weaknesses this weekend? Because at certain times, they just didn't seem to have any pace. Max said it himself. He just couldn't seem to get the car working. Look, guys, let's be honest. If a bad weekend is coming second, I mean, can't really complain about that. But the question is, have they given away some of their weaknesses? Have they shown some cards here? What do you guys think, Martin?
I think it's something that we predicted for a while now, and that is that if you get the concept right first, you're going to be way ahead of everyone else. But you're going to get to a point where it's becoming very difficult to develop perfection. So they had a good car. They were always the best car. Making that best car better is becoming more difficult and more difficult. And all the other manufacturers are finding out how this ground effect works. And they're closing the gap. But Red Bull, there's just not that much that the step that they can take forward. So until the shapes change and the engine change, I don't know what leap they can take. For Adrian Newey, the genius, has basically said the car's becoming very, very difficult to improve. He's almost reached a peak with the current car. So everyone else can improve massively. They can't.
Let's move on to Checo. I've got a serious question to ask. It's now 2 races in a row where he has not really been close to Max. Last year, we saw Checo start off very well, and then he fell off. This year, we saw him start off very well. In fact, last year, he had wins. This year, we thought he had started even better, but he didn't even have wins this year. But he's just looked better because he's been closer. But in the last 2 races, he seemed to have been falling back again. Yes, this could be a sign of the other teams being better, and Max is just Max, and that's why he's still in the front. But the question I have to ask is this the time where Checo starts falling backwards again? Or are the other cars just simply in the mix and Max is just simply Max? That's, for me, a question that could bring up a very hot topic among a lot of people. But, well, I'm going to ask you guys. So, Martin, what do you think? By the way, you're more than welcome to bring up the torpedo, because I felt like I was watching Daniel Kvyat this weekend. But anyways.
Yeah, my first question would be, what happened into turn 1? How did he get that speed? Where did it come from? They've checked that it was a legal start. How did he get where he was in that first corner? Can't they just recreate that? Because that would work. If they do that from pole, no one's catching that. Then the second thing is, There's the Checo one goes both ways because I believe the other teams have improved, and we're seeing great drivers like Charles Leclerc. We are seeing Lando. We are seeing Oscar. We are seeing great drivers that are now in more equal cars. And I think everyone likes screaming, "It's the car! It's the car!" I believe there's 0.3 in a car and 0.6 in a driver. So I do believe that once the cars are equal, Checo will be doing a fantastic job if he keeps on getting his thirds and fourths. I think that's a great job if he does that. The other part of that same question is, last year this time, the world was raving and going, Checo is going to challenge Max for the world championship. And people were saying, do you guys realize we're on street circuits? Do you realize we're on the circuits that suit Checo? And all of a sudden, everyone's world fell apart and they were all saying, what's happened to Checo? Because what's going to happen from now on? We're going to move on to the Max circuits. We're going to go onto those European circuits. We're going to go onto Zandvoort. We're going to go onto the racetracks, away from the street, and it just suits Max. So I believe from here on, Checo started last year. If we actually go look at the first 5 races last year, people were thinking Checo was going to challenge Max. People have forgotten that.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Martin, I mean, I have nothing really to add in terms of that, to be honest. I mean, Martin is right. The only thing that I could actually add is that he is actually racing for a contract as well, because science is available. So as soon as he starts making his mistakes, the mistakes he done last year, Red Bull is getting science. With no question, Red Bull will get signs. So he is fighting for a contract, and surely this season we're not going to see the periods we saw last season. So I think if he maintains third, fourth, even second, maybe grab one win, which is, I know it's impossible, but if he's second, third in the podium on a bad weekend, maintains fourth, qualifies reasonably well, because we know last year's qualifying was dismal, especially the second half of the season. So he just needs to stay within Max. Not saying beating Max, we know that's not going to happen. He can surprise us, but he just needs to be able to cover Max in terms of getting those second and thirds to maintain the points, the construction points for Red Bull.
Yeah, I think the only thing there is it must be very difficult for a driver to. I mean, Red Bull have admitted that they're talking to Carlos. It must be really. I mean, let's be honest. It's Perez knows it's not to replace Max. Let's be honest about that. So it must be really difficult to know that a team is talking to other drivers, and you out there doing your best. Now, I can understand why Red Bull are talking to Carlos Sainz, because I think, to them it's a case of, if Max does leave, they need that one driver that will be like their lead guy. Quite frankly, who else do they have? If Max must leave, Checo's not really going to be the. I can't see Checo being a Max in the sense of dominating a world championship, whereas Sainz still has a bit of the grit that in him to do it. Even though he's never really shown it yet, because he's never really been in that position, but we can see that he's definitely got the grit to be a Max if he had the car to be a Max. But I think ultimately it must be really difficult for a driver to be doing the best that you can, have been putting in some good performances, but then your team is actually talking to another driver, and it's not to replace the other guy. So I do feel like that could put a lot of weight on a driver's, and I think that's where a lot of people talk about how Red Bull are so toxic, because they make it known that the pressure's there. But I mean, I don't see it as toxic. I see it as business. But at the end of the day, it is quite hard. It is quite hard, I think, for drivers to keep their sort of confidence up when they know that that's going on. But anyways, let's move on to Magnussen versus Hamilton versus Logan Sargent. Let's start off with Logan Sargent. I'm going to ask you guys, BT, I'll ask you first. Whose fault was it, Magnussen or Logan Sargent?
To be honest with you, I didn't quite see what happened. But to be honest, I'll probably say Sargent, because he doesn't really belong Formula One. Let's please hope with this last season, Williams, they need to get someone else. If they want to move forward in the paddock and be part of the top five, the top six, or even join Aston Martin, where Aston Martin is in a hierarchy, they need to get rid of Sargent because I have no idea what he's doing. And if that didn't happen, Norris wouldn't have won his first race. That would actually make me happy. But Sargent had to do what he had to do. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure Martin what happened because when it comes to Sargent, when the camera goes to Sargent, I do not pay attention. And Martin Graham will actually explain that to you. We view Sargent as a joke. It's not us being rude or anything like that, but it's like you're seeing someone that really doesn't belong to Formula One. And he's been given a second chance and he's still doing the same thing. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
So we were talking about that bias from BT's side. Remember, we were talking about that bias. I didn't see it, but it was Logan's fault.
Yeah, that's pretty fair analysis of it, though.
So, what's your thoughts, Martin?
I must be honest. I actually can't recall the incident at all.
He basically just did not see Magnussen on his right side, and basically they just touched wheels. But Magnussen was like almost oblivious. Like it's like he wasn't there. He was like invincible. Logan just drove, bro. But okay. Anyways, in my opinion, I did watch it, guys. I do watch F1. I don't know what's going on here, but I do pay attention. Anyways, it was Logan's fault. We're going to just leave it there, and we'll move on to Magnussen versus Hamilton. Magnussen versus Hamilton was quite, I won't say heated, because it seemed like it should have been heated, but actually they were very respectful for one another.
Yeah.
Like, props to them for how they both handled it. I was very impressed with both of them. They both handled it extremely well. Mr. Suck My Balls and Mr. Lewis, I cry for everything. It's very odd how they both actually handled it so well. But yeah, I don't have any specific questions. I just want to know what your thoughts are with the whole Magnussen and Hamilton situation. BT, you can go first, seeing as you had not much to say about Magnussen not being at fault when you didn't see it.
So I'm quite confused. So are we talking about Magnussen and Hamilton like literally blow by blow, or did something happen, or did I miss something?
Mate, if Magnussen, let me put it to you this way. If Magnussen doesn't get a race ban at some point this year, then that race ban thing is rigged completely. Because there's no ways that guy can continue racing like this.
I mean, wait. So the last time I was watching it is when Hamilton was not struggling to get past Magnussen, but okay, he was struggling a bit, going back and forth. So did I miss anything else after that?
I know.
Martin, would you like to say something?
Please.
Yeah, I've actually got a very different opinion on this whole situation. And that is, everyone that knows what I talk when I talk about Formula One, I'm old school. And I am all in favor of wheel-to-wheel racing and hard racing and tough racing. However, I don't believe what Magnussen's doing right now is that. It is a difference if you are racing for position and you are trying to overtake someone or to defend your position. But if you actually, after the race, say, well, I did my job, I kept the guys behind me, and that is what I was meant to do, that is completely negative. There must be something in the sporting code or in the regulations against doing that. He wasn't racing Hamilton for position. His only goal was, even if he had to basically go off the circuit, even if he had to crash, his job is to impede the other drivers, nothing that's nonsense. I really think even the team should get a ban, to be dead honest. I believe it's completely unacceptable to basically say the way that Haas now operates is we go out and we basically get one guy in front and the second guy is a kamikaze pilot taking everyone out and just basically
Well,
go crazy.
100% agree with you, and that is why I said if Magnussen doesn't get a race ban this year, then I don't know, because that is exactly for me what it is. I love that they both handled it amicably. I love that Lewis was like, yeah, he was honest, so well done, fair play. But I do think that there's also a difference between holding somebody back and like really holding somebody back. Like he was erratic. I mean, you think, you look at Max and you look at Max at Jeddah 2021 and you think like that was quite erratic. I mean, I mean, as a Max fan, even I can say like that was out of line, you know. But at least he was fighting for something.
Yeah.
Magnussen was fighting for nothing. He was in the 19th position and he was pulling moves like that and just basically like just throwing Hamilton all over the place. It was absolutely terrible to watch. But fair play to them both. They handled it well. But I do agree with you. I do think that something more serious needs to be said about that. Because but like I said, I can't. Magnussen, if I'm not mistaken, does Magnussen not now have 11 penalty points? And 12 penalty points is a race ban.
Yeah.
Somewhere there.
So, I mean, listen, gents, there's a long season to go still. And I mean, if you think about it, you can get one penalty point for like if you do like 5 track limits. Austria's coming. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? Ocon last year got like 5 minutes worth of penalties there. So
remember you did do the same thing. Which race was that again? It was
just 2 races back. Just the previous race.
Sorry?
Just
the very last race.
Yeah. So only this time it was kind of dodgy because of the position it was in, right? Because when you first done it by backing up the order for Hulkenberg to actually get into the points. If I'm mistaken by saying that, it was the same strategy. It was the same strategy, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the only bad thing about it is that it was 19th and 18th. That's the only bad thing about it, that they weren't fighting for any points or anything like that.
No.
My problem is when the driver goes into the press briefing and basically says, it's not what I wanted to do, but this is the orders my team gave me. I know it's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
And it sucks that I had to do it, but I'm doing it. So if your team goes out and basically says to a second driver, your only job is now to drive as erratic as you can. We don't care if you get 20-second penalties. It's not, you're out of the anyway. All we want you to do is protect your other driver. That just doesn't seem like racing.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I mean, gents, look, I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill here, but there's currently a court order happening or a court case happening because of certain things that were called by team members onto team players. If you recall 2008, there are current things going on where there's championships that were lost, money that was lost. There's things now. I know it's a 19th place in the 5th race of 2024.
Yeah.
Between two people that are nowhere near the front. But the reality is, what makes that different in behavior? The team is still instructing a driver to do something unsportsmanlike.
Yes.
To assist and help that his teammate can get extra points, because at the end of the day, that's money to them. At the end of the season, it's money to them. Because let's be honest, RB have figured something out because they're starting to pull away now.
Yeah.
I think they a good 7 or 8 points ahead now. So Haas are going to try and eke out every single point they can possibly eke out. And, by definition of lawful, that's actually fraudulent. If you want to call it fraudulent, but it's a case of like, go out there and do something unsportsmanlike so that we can win more money at the end of the year, kind of thing. And that's just the way I see it. So I do agree. But Yeah. Okay. Let's speaking of RB, let's quickly have that conversation. How Ricardo 4th and then 16th, Yuki 16th and then 7th. How? What is going on? How come there's no middle ground with that team? It's either really good or really bad. Like, what is happening? Why is it so contrasting, from race to race? It just doesn't make sense. Don't get me wrong, very happy for Daniel this weekend. I think he definitely showed something. I've been wanting to see that this year. I really hope he can continue it. But then in the race, it all fell apart, or at least not in the race. In qualifying for the race, it all fell apart. Is it a setup issue? I don't know what it is, but he definitely looked good in that car during that sprint. He was defending like a boss. He was extremely quick, and in qualifying, he put in a time that just made no sense how that car even got there. And then qualifying for the main race, he was nowhere. Yuki, the complete opposite, couldn't put in a time, and then all of a sudden in the race, in the main race qualifying, the guy was like, "I'm gonna show you that Yuki can be a Yuki," and just put it into 7th place. So I don't know. I don't know what you guys are thought. I don't have a specific question for you. All my question is basically like, what are your thoughts there? What do you think is possibly going on there? Is it maybe a like pick it out of a lucky packet day by day and see what happens type of thing? Martin, you can go first on this one.
I think it's a very simple one, really. What's happening is, it's just an opinion, but I believe that RB are now where Mercedes were last year. And that is remember, everyone is trying to find out what the hell Red Bull was doing. The Red Bull was leading. Everyone's going, what's going on here? So what happens? Checo has an accident and shows everyone the flaw. So everyone goes and copies the flaw. So they copy the Red Bull flaw, but they have no idea why they did. I don't know why the flaw does what it does, but it's supposed to work because it's the Red Bull flaw. So Mercedes go and they one weekend get it right, and then they get it wrong, and they get it right, and they get it wrong, and they don't know what they do on the weekends when they're getting it right. So now Red Bull has gone and said to RB, well, there we go. There's the RB 19 parts. You can do with it whatever you want. So now they have it, but how does it work? So they have the parts and they have no clue what to do with it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that one. And maybe remember, sprint weekend, you can actually change the setup of the car. So they probably just trying different setups. They saw on the sprint that, oh, we actually look fast, we're actually improving. Maybe if we tweak this, tweak that, maybe we be fast, we can get faster. By tweaking that, they're actually going backwards. So I think that's what's happening at the moment. So in terms of Ricardo, it happened the other way around, where his setup for the sprint was the right setup, but his setup for the race was the wrong setup. So for Yuki, his setup for the sprint was not quite good. His setup for the race was perfect for his race weekend. So I think also that what happened. But Martin nailed it to the T in terms of that.
Yeah. I mean, we've had this chat before, Martin, and I think last year we had a chat on live regarding the exact same thing, and I agreed with you. It's I think last year when we had the chat, we were talking more about Aston Martin and Dan Fellows, because we were saying like they're in a position where they have Dan Fellows that understands the Red Bull philosophy, but he doesn't understand the way to make it better. He understands the philosophy, but how to make it better, because you don't have someone like an Adrian Newey or even like Pierre Vacher or whatever you call him. I mean, he seems to be doing a damn good job there. From my understanding, Newey has been only consulting for in terms of the design. He hasn't like directly been involved like 100%. That's my understanding. I kind of feel like that's just being said, but at the same time, say again.
I think they're just pulling some wool over our eyes there.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just something that's being said to dim down the lights, with all the stuff that's been going on. But either way, Pierre has still been doing a good job regardless. So I think at the end of the day, I agree with that 100%. And so I've got one last question, and then we'll get to the final big question. Sainz versus Piastri, penalty for Sainz or not penalty for Sainz? I'm gonna just say it straight out here. That's a penalty for Sainz on my front. But I'll let BT go first. I don't know if you saw the incident, but it was a Ferrari car, so I'm sure your eyes were glued to the TV.
Yeah, no.
You're gonna say no.
I do agree with you, to be honest with you. But it is a penalty. Sainz was a bit aggressive from the start in terms of that situation. And end of the day, it does look like a forced overtake to me. Yes, perhaps he did give him some space, but I think Sainz just went over aggressively through that chicane or that corner. And he was already frustrated already throughout the race. So yeah, it is a penalty on my end. I'm not gonna be biased this time, Graham, and say it's not a penalty. But it was a penalty on my side.
Yeah,
I don't think he got.
agree.
I don't think he got it. I
Nah.
don't think he got a penalty though, right? He didn't
No,
get
he
one.
didn't. He didn't.
But he's like the maneuver was so weird because it's almost like he went in deep, stopped in the middle of the road, and then turned.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, hang on, how is this not even being looked at? Like it did apparently get looked at, but I just didn't make sense to me.
And if you look at the pass, we gave him some space, so it was some space for him to go past. I don't know how.
Yeah.
He actually bumped into him. I don't know how he done that.
Can I just say that? Sorry, can I just say that Piastri, let's compare to all the other drivers that's in their second year, aka Logan Sargent, and whoever else. The point is, can I just say that this Lighty's got some big balls, man.
Yeah.
Like the maneuver he was doing and the way that he came back at him after Sainz actually got past him, then came back at him on the inside, and then Sainz did pass him, and then he went back at Sainz. He's got some big balls for somebody who's only been in the F1 for a year and a bit, and I really think there's a bright future for that kid just because of how he conducts himself. He looks like an experienced driver in a lot of cases. Yes, there may be a few things here and there that he still needs to pick up on, but when it comes to in the heat of the moment type of battles, he looks so experienced. And I really think that that's a good sign for his future. I don't know if you guys agree, but
yeah, no, I mean, I also agree. His manager is Mark Webber, remember, guys. So his mentor and manager is Mark Webber. So he's learning. He has learned a lot from him as well. I know Mark Webber was never a world champion, but he was pretty good driver during the time with Red Bull. So he has an advantage of learning from Mark Webber. But in terms of his performance as a second-year driver, it's really amazing. I mean, the last time we saw something like that was Lewis Hamilton, if I'm not mistaken. You guys can actually correct me in terms of other drivers that have been in the second year or first year doing so well. Yes, he was in the right machine. He's in the right team as well and the right machinery. But even last year, McLaren were not where they are at the moment. And he was still quite good last year. I mean, he won a sprint race last year as a rookie. There's nothing else we can say about that. That he has a bright future, and hopefully he'll become a Ferrari driver at some point in his career.
Calm down. Just relax a little bit there. Just relax a bit, please. Martin, would you like to add something?
Yeah, no, I think I've been very clear on this one. I believe that he's the next multiple world champion. He's maybe not the next champion. He's the next multiple world champion.
Yeah.
He's the next guy that's going to win 2, 3, 4 world championship. And I think anyone that's ever saw any videos that I made a year or two ago, I really, really wanted to dislike this kid. I really, really didn't want to like him. I said everything bad about him. I said he's not going to hack it. I don't like him. I don't like his personality. And currently, I have to say he might be my favorite driver.
Yeah.
I think he's got the talent. He's got the ability. Yeah. He's just a nice guy. The way he conducts himself, the way that, if we look at a race or two back when he was racing Lewis Hamilton, and he did a maneuver on Lewis where he knew that he had to give the position back. He didn't wait for the team to call it. He didn't wait for anything. He simply braked, let Lewis go past, and started his attack again. So literally, he's thinking all the time. He doesn't overreact, and he's cool, calm while driving really fast, and that's scary.
Yeah, just to add on that as well.
I agree.
Is that Norris, right? It took Norris so long to win his first race. I'm not saying Norris is not good or anything like that. Don't get me like don't get it twisted or don't mistake me for saying that. But you do get the Norris type of drivers where it takes them a while to get to that point or to win a race. And you get drivers like Piastri, Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, Max. Guys like that who can win races out of the bat, just like that. Can I say those are more natural drivers? It comes naturally to them, being racing drivers. I can add Alonso there as well. Then you get another batch like Mark Webber, Norris, um, David Coulthard, maybe. Guys can mistake me for that. That they are brilliant, but they need to get used to everything first. They need to gain a bit of knowledge. They need to learn how to win in order for them to get that first win. I could add science to that as well. Not saying Science is not a good driver. It took him a while to actually win his first race. He had to be in the perfect situation. I do understand that. But I'm just grouping these drivers into two batches. You get the drivers that it comes naturally, you give them the car, they're going to win. And you get drivers that it's going to take them a couple of times, maybe like Norris in Sochi, where the win was this close and he didn't get it. Or a situation in when Daniel Ricciardo won in Monza in 2021, where I'm still confused why Norris didn't win that race. But that's a debate for another day. So Piastri, in my opinion, is one of those drivers that if you put him in a good car, I think you'll start to win races instantly. Yeah, that's just how I feel about him at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm on the same page as you, but I also do think it's circumstantial. I think guys like Norris, for example, he just didn't really have the car ever. And then when he had the car, Max had a car that was an absolute rocket ship. So then he could come second all the time, but there was no way. So I think it was circumstantial. I think given the car from the get, I think Norris would be able to have done it as well. I will say this though, and I'm not sure if I've said it on the podcast, but I've definitely told it to you guys before. Is that I see the thing between Norris and Piastri like I view Messi and Ronaldo. The one is naturally gifted. The one is just a naturally gifted, talented person. And the other one is just a really hard worker that learns extremely fast and understands what needs to be done for them to win. And I think you are right in that I think Piastri is the one that's naturally gifted. And I think that Norris is the one who just knows what to do. And he just puts in the work to make it happen. Not to say that he isn't naturally gifted, but I do think we talk about those generational talents, and I think Piastri's probably one of the drivers that could fall into that category of generational talent, like the Maxes, the Alonsos, the Lewises. But yeah, anyhow, do you want to add anything to that, Martin, before we move on?
I like putting drivers into what I call drivers versus racers. And certain people that can drive a car really fast.
Yeah.
Certain people that can race a car. And let's take the Mercedes pairing, because let's not go across teams. Let's take the Mercedes pairing. I believe if you take both those drivers and you put them on a racetrack and you say, go do a qualifying lap for me, I believe George Russell is absolutely insanely fast. I believe he can see a line, he can take a line. He will beat Lewis Hamilton 7 out of 10 times in a qualifying lap. But if you put them on a race car and you put them on a racetrack and you give Lewis Hamilton a car that's 0.2 of a second slower, he'll find a way to win that race.
Here we go.
He'll take you across a chicane, he'll cut a corner where you didn't know it can be done. He will outrace you. And some people are just natural racers.
Yeah.
And some people are quick. All these guys are quick, but some of them can actually see a different line.
All these guys except for Stroll and Sargent. Just can we make that clear?
I'm starting to agree with you.
Cool. Okay. So, final question, the big question of the day, guys. And the reason why this question is coming up is because obviously putting together McLaren's upgrades, putting together the chat of the fact that Lando Norris has just had a win, and the fact that Red Bull didn't just have a win, but they did come second. So it's not like anything went completely wrong for them for a change. It's just things happened. Lando was able to pull away from the Red Bull as well. We're at the end or coming to the end of an era, and we saw at the end of the previous era where Red Bull had caught up, we saw what happened there in 2021. It happens at the end of every era. I wished that every era had a time frame of 10 years, because I feel like the last 5 years of that 10-year spree would be absolute chaos of wheel-to-wheel action from the front to the back. We saw it in 2021. We're very, very, very close to seeing it now. It's as you said, Martin, and it's exactly the reason why I had this question, because I agree with exactly and had the same thought of you. These cars have gotten to a point where they can't go much further. So everybody else is now catching up. 2025, will we see a repeat of 2021? That is the question. Martin, you can go first.
In terms of car development or in terms of championship?
In terms of both. So in terms of having multiple cars being, or multiple drivers being able to fight.
I think we are going to see Red Bull still ahead. I think we pretty much got our pecking order now. I think this pecking order is going to stay pretty similar through now until 2026. I think this is it. I think they're going to all have the improvement, and it's going to be closer, because I don't believe we've seen this full season yet. So if you ask me right at this moment, I say it's going to get closer. But if we look at the end of the season, I think it might not be a Red Bull first and second in the championship. So, yeah, from the end of this season to the end of next season, I don't see much changing. I have to add on to what you said regarding you wish that there was a 10-year period. You know what that basically means. If it takes that time to develop a car, in the era pre-budget, the teams could make a good car in the first year. So we would have seen good wheel-to-wheel action from year one. So that the reason why we have to wait 5 years is because good manufacturers have to take 5 years to get to understand the concept of a car where we could in the first year.
Yeah, but then you take 5 years to understand the concept of the car, and then they change it, and then you've got to restart. Yep. So that's why, for me, I just think it would be nice if every era of regulations had a time period of about 10 years, because I feel like those last 5 years would just be insane. And it just shows, because most of our good years of racing are generally at the end of every era that we generally get. Otherwise, it's usually just domination from, unless we're backdating back in the days, but like obviously, we can go back to, like, let's say since the Schumacher era. From there, it's pretty much. You can go back. I've done all these videos on these champions, and you can go back many years where it's the same guy that wins, like how many times in a row, and then it's the next guy that wins how many times in a row. And then it's just every now and again you get that one hit wonder, like the Jensen Buttons and so on. So and then you get like the Jack with the Hawthorns and stuff like that, who just like get that one in there every now and again. But other than that, it's usually the same guy winning how many times in a row. So it always gets to that point where at the end of every era there's always like a difference or a change or just a fight or a good year of racing, a solid competition. But yeah, I think BT, you haven't answered, so I think you can give me your thoughts.
Yeah, you're basically rambling now, but I agree.
Shut up.
I agree with Martin. I personally, I understand why the 5-year period happens and why all the cars catch up towards the end. In terms of viewership and marketing on my side, it's to actually make people think that the next regulations is going to carry on that fight that we got towards the end. So it's to keep those people actually watching. Not talking about us, the actual fans of Formula One. I'm talking about people that actually just watch Formula One for the sake of watching Formula One. I don't quite understand the history, how the sport works. You do get those type of people. So if you actually watch 2021,
the casual watchers.
Yes. So if you watch 2021, when Verstappen won his first title, how Verstappen won that title. Um, Obviously, casual watchers will be like, "Oh, sure, but so the next season it's going to be like this again. I'm going to watch the next season." So that's how they get the new viewers and all that stuff. But to be honest with you, I'm with Martin in terms of there's not going to be much change next year. I could say that looking at the driver changes, so Hamilton going to Ferrari, Sainz maybe going to Red Bull or whatever. I think in terms of the top three or the top two, McLaren and Ferrari, I think they do get more than one win next season. Surely that could happen. But that's just a guess on my side and hoping that might happen. Yeah.
Look, yeah. So from my side, I'll say this. And I don't want to be biased about this either, but like at the end of the day, guys, like it's Max Verstappen. Let's be honest, guys. Honestly, it is Max Verstappen. So the way I see it at the moment is, if McLaren, Ferrari, and Red Bull all had similarly placed cars, and that's what I'm thinking probably will happen. The gap will be closed, and that those cars will all be very equal. But I do feel that you're still going to have Max just killing everybody. It's Max Verstappen, guys. He's a 3-time world champion, and he's shown that he couldn't care less. If you want to play chicken with him, you are the one that's going to chicken out first, because you know he isn't. And I mean, if he could show that type of racing towards a 7-time world champion, there ain't a care in the world that he'll be doing that to a Charles Leclerc or a Carlos Sainz or anybody else. So I think at the end of the day, he's definitely still going to win that. What I will be a little bit more interested to seeing is the second, third fights, and I've got a feeling that that's where Lando and Leclerc are going to start pulling something out of the bag there. Don't get me wrong, I know Hamilton is going to be there next year, but
how could you, bro?
In fact, yeah.
Nah, I'm disappointed.
To be honest with you,
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed.
I mean, listen, Leclerc showed, Leclerc showed this weekend. Listen, Hamilton, don't forget who I am, pal. I don't know if you guys saw that, but Leclerc is there, bro. He's not scared. He showed Hamilton yesterday. He showed Hamilton. He's like, hey, listen, I'm here, but you don't just remember, I'm here. You're not going to be driving against Logan Sargent, but I'm Charles Leclerc. But anyways, okay, guys, gents, that is all we have for this episode. And thank you so much for watching. And Martin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Before we kick off, I would like to ask you guys to rate the race out of 10, and then we'll say our goodbyes. So, BT, would you like to kick it off and start us with how much you rated this race?
Yeah, a whopping 7.5.
Come again?
7.5.
7.5.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Martin, do you have a rating for this race?
Yeah, I'll go with a 7 as well. I think Lando makes it look good, but the race was still thereabout. 7 is good.
Yeah.
Agreed. So I'm going to go with an 8. Admittedly, though, I'm going to say the outcome changed the rating for me. If it weren't for the outcome, I would have probably given it a 6 or a 7. It was a good race. It wasn't a great race. But the outcome for me is what made it a great race to me. So I'm going to go with an 8 out of 10. By any case, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.